Since 2017, the Tartus naval base in Syria has been Russia's only major overseas military port, ensuring its presence in the Middle East and Mediterranean. But now, that presence might soon be no more. After briefly blocking Russian evacuation ships from docking, Syria's new leadership has now canceled Russia's lease of Tartus. The lease cancellation might now signal the beginning of the end of Russia's military presence in Syria, and with that, its African operations. After being forced to sail in circles for over a week, some Russian naval transport ships were finally granted access to Tartus on January 22nd. The Sparta III, a cargo ship used for military logistics, was allowed to dock and began loading Russian military equipment for evacuation. It is unclear if other ships were granted entry. The two Russian warships, the Ivan Gren and Alexander Otrakhovsky, have been sailing without GPS trackers turned on in recent weeks. The last open-source fix on the tanker, the General Skobelev, was 9 days old as of January 22nd, according to the group Vessel.Finder. But while the ships were allowed entry, Syria's new government officially canceled Russia's 49-year lease of the Tartus base, citing a Russian company's failure to update the port facilities as per a contract signed with ousted leader Bashar al-Assad. Tartus Customs Director Riyad Judy, in an interview with Qatari newspaper Al Watan, confirmed that all revenues from the port will now go to the Syrian state. With that, Russia no longer has access to its only naval base in the Mediterranean Sea. Russia's presence in Tartus was secured through a 2017 deal between Vladimir Putin and then Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, granting Moscow free use of the base for 49 years with full jurisdiction. But Assad's regime collapsed in December 2024, and power shifted to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, a former insurgent group that now leads Syria's interim government. HTS has since moved to reduce Russian influence, announcing a review of Syria's maritime security policies. Syria's new leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, said Russia's military presence in Syria will be curtailed in a message riddled with ambiguity, stating on December 30th, "We do not want Russia to depart in a manner unbefitting its long-standing relationship with our country."
Syria and Russia had a strategic relationship. We can't end it quickly, and we want to develop our joint strategic interests in the future.
With Russian warships unable to dock for more than a week, earlier reports indicate that Russian forces at Tartus began burning supplies and military equipment that could not be evacuated. Open-source overhead images have documented hundreds of Russian military vehicles parked in rows stretching more than a kilometer inside the Tartus port, likely awaiting evacuation. Both Ukrainian and Syrian news agencies reported that Russian forces had lined up hundreds of military trucks, dozens of armored vehicles, dismantled radar systems, and at least 2 S-400 anti-aircraft systems inside the port perimeter. Unlike troops, who can be flown out via Khmeimim Air Base, heavy military assets must be transported by sea or risk being left behind. Neither Moscow nor Damascus had officially stated whether Russian naval access to Tartus would end or continue as of January 22nd. But multiple reports indicate that a Russian commander failed in 2 separate attempts to negotiate with HTS officials to resecure military access prior to the latest developments. While there were rumors that Moscow is talking to Libya to host the troops and equipment evacuating Syria, how that would play out remains unclear. The fall of Assad and Russia's diminishing presence in Syria may also disrupt Moscow's ability to export grain from occupied Ukrainian territories. According to Ukrainian advisor Petro Andriushchenko, Russia had been planning to convert the port of Berdyansk in occupied Ukraine into a major transportation hub for grain shipments to Syria. Under the Assad regime, Russian grain shipments could be disguised as Syrian imports, bypassing international sanctions. However, with Syria's new leadership now distancing itself from Moscow, that scheme might never come to fruition. The Syrian finance ministry has already banned goods import. Goods in that now illegal trade would be confiscated by authorities. Without Tartus, Russia also loses its only reliable naval base outside its borders, further curbing its ambition in the Middle East and Africa, the latter of which has been providing a stable source of funding to Moscow through its mineral wealth. While HTS claims it does not want to sever ties with Moscow, its actions suggest a clear shift away from Russian influence. With no agreement on the horizon, the question remains, can Russia negotiate a new deal? Or is this the end of Russia's once permanent military presence in Syria? As one domino falls in Syria, how many others will soon follow? How will that affect Russia's presence in Africa? And will the fallout have any bearing on Moscow's invasion of Ukraine? The answers to these questions remain to be answered.